A sleek morning show interview with Meghan Markle on Live with Kelly and Mark starts as safe promo and turns into a psychological fistfight watched by millions. Between a host pushed to the edge, a guest obsessed with control, and producers whispering we need a viral moment, the real scandal isn't what was said on air, but what was done to make it happen. This is a fictionalized behind the scenes story of the interview that almost broke daytime TV. Welcome back, everybody, Kelly Ripa sang. That familiar morning brightness turned up just enough to feel almost unreal. We are so excited about our next guest. I was in the control room, headphones on, eyes flicking between four monitors. Camera 1 held Kelly and Mark. Camera 2 was waiting for Meghan Markle to walk out. Camera 3 watched the studio audience. Camera 4, my favorite, was the red tally light, the tiny dot that meant the whole country was listening. Make her entrance wide, my boss murmured behind me. We want the blazer, the walk, the whole thing. Got it, I said, fingers hovering over the switcher. And remember, he added, hand on the back of my chair, no monarchy questions until segment 3. Legal was very clear. The stage manager's voice came through our feed. And we're back in 3, 2. Applause exploded from the risers. Meghan stepped into frame like she'd rehearsed it 100 times. Cream blazer, soft waves, that media-trained smile that looked warm from far away and slightly guarded up close. She waved to the crowd, leaned in to hug Kelly, shook Mark's hand, and settled into the guest chair with the ease of someone who knows exactly where the cameras are. Meghan, welcome, Kelly said, her voice like warm honey. We are so happy you're here. Thrilled to be here, Meghan replied. Teeth perfect. Smile perfect. Eyes, not quite. I watched the monitor closely. There's a tiny delay between the actual moment and what goes out to the world. A heartbeat of time where you see real faces before they remember they're being watched. Meghan's gaze flicked to the audience, to the lights, to the camera. For a fraction of a second, her jaw clenched. Then the show smile snapped back on. Mark leaned forward, relaxed, the good cop. You've had a massive year. New projects, new partnerships. For people just waking up with us, what's the big focus right now? Meghan didn't hesitate. Storytelling with impact, she said. We're building spaces where unheard voices can finally be centered. Not as an afterthought, but as the main story. It was a beautiful answer. Polished. Safe. But something in the way she emphasized unheard landed with a little metallic ring. A quiet, implied, I know what it's like not to be listened to. The audience applauded on cue. In my ear, my boss muttered, good. Keep it light. Kelly nodded enthusiastically. Impact is such a powerful word. With your new season coming up, there's a lot of curiosity about what you'll be exploring. What kind of stories are you most drawn to now? Meghan crossed one leg over the other, blazer catching the light. Agency, she said. Refusing to be defined by outdated systems. Creating your own narrative, on your own terms. There it was. The first crackle of static in the air. Outdated systems, Kelly repeated lightly, like she was tasting the phrase. Do you mean Hollywood? The industry? A tiny pause. Or, the bigger one? The control room went very still. Careful, legal said in my other ear, audio from their office line feeding directly to us. You're close to the line. Meghan's smile didn't move, but her eyes sharpened. Any system that survives by silencing people, she said, is outdated. Age is just a number. Harm lasts much longer. A soft murmur rippled through the audience. On camera 3, a woman in the front row actually put a hand to her chest. Mark jumped in. Since you brought up systems, he said smoothly, you've spoken a lot about controlling your own narrative. You and Harry stepped back from royal duties for your mental health and privacy. But you've also been very public, interviews, series, a book. How do you balance those things? In my headset. A producer hissed, too early, Mark, too early. Meghan exhaled through her nose, the slightest flare. Privacy isn't silence, she said. It's agency. I decide what matters. That's not a contradiction. That's adulthood. Kelly's smile tightened just a hair. It was the kind of micro expression you only caught if you'd watched her for years. I had. I knew her annoyed but professional face. Totally, Kelly said. And also, this is a business, right? She lifted her next card, then set it down. Didn't read. Trade papers say negotiations for the new season were robust. A gentle laugh. Some fans wonder, did you ask for significantly more this time? The control room lit up. Who approved that? Legal snapped. Leave it, my boss said. His voice sounded like caffeine and greed. Let's see where she goes. On the couch, Meghan gave a small, pretty laugh that never reached her eyes. Isn't it funny, she said, how a woman asking for market value is greedy, but when men do it, it's called vision? A few audience members clapped. A few others glanced at each other, uncertain. We align compensation with impact, Meghan added. That's not gossip. That's math. Kelly absorbed the jab with a gracious nod. So it's fair to say, she said, you pushed for parity. It's fair to say, Meghan replied, folding her hands like punctuation, I don't discount myself. Mark smiled, a little tighter now. Let's visit the personal, just a bit, he said. Only what you're comfortable with, of course. He had this soothing tone like a flight attendant before turbulence. People really admire you and Harry as a team. Separate travel schedules get amplified online. A chuckle from the audience. Is there anything you want to say to quiet the rumor machine? Meghan's smile cooled. Teams divide and conquer, she said. Adults have calendars. If strangers need more than that, I highly recommend a hobby. The audience laughed, but this time it was edged. Not quite sure if the joke was on them. In my ear, my boss murmured, she's spiky today. Good television. Kelly's cards trembled just slightly in her hand. She masked it with a bigger smile. Okay, she said, letting the moment pass. Home life aside, your advocacy has really resonated. Mental health, women's leadership. When you think about success this year, what does that look like for you? Meghan relaxed a fraction. Stories that don't ask permission, she said. And shutting the door on noise. It should have been the perfect place to go to break. Soft, strong, quotable. Instead, someone in standards pinged our chat, you still have to hit the monarchy question. Contract. My boss leaned over my shoulder. Segment 3, he reminded me. We need the clip. We came back from commercial with a slightly higher buzz in the studio. The audience knew something was brewing, even if they couldn't name it. Welcome back to Live with Kelly and Mark, Kelly said, posture straighter now. We're here with Meghan Markle, talking about her new projects, her advocacy, and a little bit of everything, actually. Meghan smiled, tilting her head. It's important people actually hear me, she said softly. Not the distorted noise they get from tabloids. Or from selective edits. The dart landed exactly where she aimed it, at us. Kelly blinked once. The smile stayed, but I could see the sting. In her ear, the executive producer said, don't react. Go to the card. Go to the card. She didn't. Meghan, Kelly said instead, looking up instead of down, we do have to ask, because it's been a big story. There were reports that negotiations for your new season were tense. That production almost stalled because you pushed for a much higher payout. How do you respond to that? A hush settled over the studio. On camera, Meghan's smirk widened by a millimeter. How predictable, she said, her voice silk over stone. A woman knows her worth and suddenly it's a scandal. Do you ask male executives why they negotiate? Or is this obsession with my paycheck just another way of policing women's ambition? Somewhere in the risers, someone said, oof, just loud enough that my mic picked it up. Kelly kept her tone neutral. I think viewers are curious because it's a global project, she said. They want to understand the intention. What they want, Meghan interrupted, the smile sharpening, is to tear down a woman who refuses to apologize for success. And I won't play into that narrative. In the control room, my boss whispered, almost lovingly, there it is. There's our moment. But this is the part the internet never saw, Kelly's fingers curling against the desk, nails digging into the underside where the camera couldn't see. Her eyes flicking up, not at Meghan, but to the middle distance where her earpiece voice lived. Back off, legal said. Stay in safe territory. Push, the executive producer said at the same time. You're losing her. We need the monarchy. 2 voices. 1 host. 1 second to choose. Kelly tilted her head, the tiniest angle. Speaking of narratives, she said quietly, you've been very candid about your experience with the monarchy. My boss muttered, here we go. There are people, Kelly continued, who feel you benefited tremendously from that platform while criticizing it very harshly afterward. Do you see any tension there? The audience gasped softly, then held its breath. Meghan's smile dropped at the edges. Surviving a system and calling out its toxicity is an irony, she said. It's courage. People love fairy tales about crowns. They don't like to hear what it costs to wear one. Mark shifted in his seat. It sounds like those years still weigh heavily on you, he said gently. Do you see any path to reconciliation with the family? Meghan's gaze hardened. Reconciliation requires honesty, she said. And honesty has never been their priority. Kelly's hands tightened. When you speak this way, she asked softly, do you ever worry you're alienating people who might want to support you? That the focus on what went wrong overshadows the work you're doing now? Meghan laughed, but there was no joy in it. If people care more about protecting an institution's image than listening to a woman who lived it, she said, they're not the kind of supporters I need. The room split right down the middle, some clapped, some looked down. In my headset, I heard it. The sentence that changed everything. Give us something big, the network exec told my boss. 1 clip. We need the clip. My boss related in a lower, almost soothing tone. Kelly, he said in her ear, this is the one. Then you can rap. On camera, Kelly's smile thinned. Her next words weren't on any card. Meghan, she said, voice very calm now, isn't it also fair to say that a lot of your visibility, these deals, this platform, all of this started because of that same institution you call toxic? The studio froze. You say you've outgrown the monarchy, Kelly went on. But you still carry the title. You still benefit from the association. Doesn't that contradiction deserve to be talked about too? For the first time, Meghan looked rattled. Her eyes flashed, her knuckles whitening on the armrest. That's a lazy way to frame it, she said. Her voice was controlled, but something under it shook. I've built everything I have now on my own terms. The fact that people can't accept that is their problem, not mine. Kelly's jaw flexed. Mark's hand slid an inch toward hers on the desk, a silent, let's stop. Her earpiece crackled again. Perfect, the exec said. Stay on it. 1 more. 1 more. And here's the thing no one outside that room will ever really understand, a live show isn't just the host and the guest. It's a dozen invisible hands on a steering wheel, all turning in different directions. Kelly inhaled. You could see her chest rise and fall. When she spoke, her voice had a tremor I'd never heard on air. I've sat here, she said, listening to you dismiss every question as an attack, Meghan. The audience leaned forward, eyes wide. You talk about truth and accountability. But anytime someone asks you about the cost of your choices, you call it policing, or cruelty, or gossip. Meghan opened her mouth. Kelly didn't stop. There are people who love you, she said. Who believed in what you stood for. They're confused. They see someone who says she wants privacy, but sells her story again and again. Someone who calls a system toxic, but still uses its title. They're allowed to wonder about that. We're allowed to ask. In my headset, legal screamed, wrap it. Wrap it now. Meghan's face flushed. For a second, the mask fell away. You think you can sit there and humiliate me, she said, voice shaking, just enough that the microphones caught it. You'll regret this. That was the line. That was the clip that would be ripped, re-uploaded, slowed down, captioned, memed. What they cut was the next part. Her shoulders dropped. The anger in her eyes flickered into something else, tiredness, maybe, or just the crushing weight of being a symbol instead of a person. I am so tired, Meghan said, barely above a whisper. Of being everyone's story but my own. On the monitor, Kelly's face softened. Just a little. Just enough that I felt my own throat tighten. But the executive producer's voice tore through the moment. Cut to Mark, he barked. Go to break, now. I hit the switch. Camera 1, Mark, leaning in. We'll be right back, he said, that practiced calm back in place. More with Meghan after the break. The applause sign flashed. The audience clapped, shaky, unsure whether they just watched a conversation, an attack, or something no one quite had words for. We went to commercial. In my headset, the execs exploded. Legal. PR network. I pulled off one ear cup, heart pounding. On the studio floor, with the light finally off, Meghan tore off her mic with shaking hands. Kelly stared straight ahead, eyes unfocused. Mark rubbed his temples. 3 people on a set that suddenly looked much too small. You okay? Someone asked Kelly. She nodded once, then again, like she was convincing herself. We were honest, she said. That's what we say we want, right? Honesty. Meghan looked at her then, really looked, without cameras between them. For a heartbeat, there was something like recognition there. 2 women who'd both spent their lives being consumed by audiences that wanted a piece of them. Then Meghan turned and walked toward the curtain. By the afternoon, the edited version of the interview had aired. By evening, the clips were everywhere. One version made Meghan a monster. Another made Kelly a bully. Another painted Mark as a coward for not stepping in harder. Each angle trimmed, tightened, stripped of context until all that was left was pure, concentrated outrage. What you just heard, all of it, the hesitations, the overlapping voices in their ears, the line that came before "you'll regret this," never made it into those edits. You came here for a scandal. For a morning show car crash. For someone to root for and someone to hate. But if you've listened this far, maybe you noticed what I can't unsee anymore. No one in that studio was really free. Not the Duchess who needed to prove she wasn't just a title. Not the host who needed a viral moment to keep her bosses happy. Not the man in the middle, desperately smoothing edges that were never meant to be smooth. Not even the person at the switcher, choosing what millions would see and what they'd never know. We like to think we're watching interviews. Most days, we're watching people try not to drown inside stories we've already written for them. So before you scroll to the comments to decide whose side you're on, just remember, the red light goes off. The mics come off. The show ends. But the performance? For some of them, it never really stops.